Sabrina 70s comic, issue 53. The story starts out with the doorbell ringing, and Sabrina asks who can this be at this hour of the night. And I wish I knew which hour of the night it was, because why are Sabrina and Hilda awake? If it's too late, then it's confusing. Harvey happily greets her, and she asks what he's doing here when his suitcase should make it obvious. I assumed he wanted to try to move in with her because of his dad being mad at him, but it turns out he's just lonely. Really? Well, I wish I was told that earlier. That does explain why he wants so many women instead of just one. But that should have been emphasized as a sympathetic excuse the first time he cheated on her, because he's one of the main characters. His parents are out of town tonight, so he wants to sleep on her living room couch for the night. His parents being out of town doesn't mean he has to sleep on a living room couch. Logically, this would just be a teenager's excuse in front of Hilda to get into her bedroom, so Hilda would never agree to it. He thanks her for agreeing, and says that he doesn't like sleeping in an empty house when he hears all kinds of strange noises. So he is too scared. He's that much of a coward? I guess this gives Hilda an idea to scare him away. Hilda says that's not the only thing creepy about Harvey's place. She's one to talk. How did she know what Harvey's place was like? She had no reason to visit it. Hilda says she wanted to see the end of this movie tonight, and Sabrina gets away with pushing her out of the room, saying that she can see it anytime. This comic forgets that Hilda is supposed to be in charge of her. She wouldn't agree to this. She didn't want him in her bathtub. But it is refreshing to see Sabrina be in charge of Hilda, so it's more enjoyable than seeing the alternative. She says she only wanted the movie to have an unhappy ending, not the evening. She hears Harvey call out for Sabrina when she's trying to sleep, pushing his luck. Oh, he wants to know how to shut off the TV. That's understandable because he wants to sleep, and wants them to not get their electric bill running up by keeping it on all night. Sabrina tells him to push in the bottom knob. I'd be confused by such an old TV too. Maybe he's confused because Hilda's clinging to an outdated TV from being old-fashioned with a screen that's too small, while his TV is better. It makes sense that he'd be confused about having to push in a knob instead of twist it. Then Harvey grabs the idiot ball by calling out for Sabrina again and asking if it'd be okay with her if he made himself a snack, when he does that all the time in her house. Why did Hilda go downstairs too? Why'd she change into a yellow bathrobe on a whim? So he annoys them all with loud sounds, looking for a pan to heat up some milk to fall asleep faster. How'd Sabrina ever survive being married to him if every night would be like this? I guess she assumes he'll get less annoying when he's older. Hilda's so frustrated and impatient that she points and says, "There's your warm milk. Now drink it and go to sleep." He asks how she did that. Oh, that's weird, it cuts ahead. If this was that boring sitcom, he'd find out she was a witch right there. Here, I have to assume she made him forget this so he wouldn't tell anyone. I say boring because I don't remember people constantly witnessing magic in the sitcom, and it being just brushed off. I barely remember that happening at all. And that's more exciting. Hilda can't stand the sound of his snoring and buzzing, and says she'll have to put a stop to this as she's wearing yellow again for no reason. So she summons a vampire in a coffin next to him, who tells him to stop keeping the vampires awake. So he runs out of the house screaming. I thought she'd scare him out of the house right away by making strange noises, not wait this long. But I guess Harvey kept asking questions, making noises, before she could think to do that in a second. She could have cast a mute spell on him instead of being mean, but that's not who she is. The story ends with her telling Sabrina that Harvey said he'd thought it over and would sleep more comfortably in his own bed. I guess Harvey was smart enough to figure that Sabrina's walls would be so thin that if he went to her room, Hilda would hear it and kick him out. The next story starts out with, once again, a door-to-door salesman trying to visit Sabrina's house. Hilda wants to zap up a skeleton to scare him away. And Sabrina says they might have something good to sell if they gave him a chance. It makes sense since the cleaning liquid was good. He says that's not just a simple broomstick handle. He can slip on an attachment to make it a broom. And it can also turn into a mop. That looks good on the surface, but wouldn't she already have a mop? Plus she could zap up a mop for free. He wouldn't be so clumsy as to hit Sabrina with the mop by accident while turning around. Is this his first day on the job? He says he can also make it become a paintbrush. Is this kinda tool realistic? He accidentally knocks down a framed picture with it and sweeps it up with a broom. Then he makes it a squeegee for windows and accidentally breaks the window. The first act of clumsiness I could buy, but not this much. Also, windows are not that easy to break. How is he staying cheerful after that? Shouldn't he know he's screwed now? He turns it into a shovel and accidentally hits Sabrina in the chest with it. And the shovel part falls onto her shoe. He turns it into an electric fan, and at this point Sabrina's annoyed enough to make him fly out of there. I wish Hilda explained to Sabrina that she could just zap up whatever he was selling. Based on his reaction of flying, I guess this is the first time he's tried to sell this thing. In the comedy page, we see Harvey put together a model plane successfully, and it flies out of the window. And the next story is just a repeat. Why? Then the next story, someone recognizes Harvey after years. Fortunately, Sabrina doesn't think they're dating and gets introduced to her politely. It turns out she was a teacher of his when he was a kid. Sabrina recklessly invites her to Hilda's house for a cup of tea, and says that she has to take her cookies and cake out of the oven. I don't know why she ever has mortals over when Hilda's around. It turns out she made the cookies especially for Harvey. I'd assumed she made them for charity. The teacher says that Harvey's still the same because he still has girls trained to do things for him. They called him Romeo Harvey, and every girl in class was wild about him. She had a hard time trying to make him pay attention to his schoolwork because all he ever thought about was girls. And she's perfectly fine with telling his girlfriend this? I guess she assumes that Sabrina has less of a temper than she does. Sabrina's so jealous that she even abuses her magic with him over him kissing a girl years ago. It's not relevant anymore. And even that convinces her to ruin the cookies. She makes him hard as a rock, breaking his tooth. At least there was a twist instead of Hilda actually being the problem of the story. There would have been more magic if she was. Magic's what makes this comic exciting. I didn't need so many panels of the teacher saying Harvey was a Casanova like he still is now. Since she called him an imp earlier, maybe she was intentionally trying to get revenge on him, but she didn't come off as wanting revenge. The first story is about Harvey sleeping on Sabrina's couch because he's lonely, because he's scared of the weird noises in his house at night when he's alone. Just to idiotically wake Sabrina and Hilda up by asking if he could make a snack, when he always does that, and banging pots and pans. So Hilda scares him away with a bunch of vampires she summoned. The second story is about an implausibly clumsy door-to-door salesman. And then there's a story where Harvey's teacher somehow thinks it's okay to tell his girlfriend all about how girl crazy he was. And even though that was years ago, Sabrina still ruins the cookies she was going to give him. I would have preferred if her cookies were for charity so that this wouldn't have happened, because that wasn't fair to Harvey. And we didn't need that many panels focused on reminding us that Harvey was girl crazy. He still is. It's a good thing all those unlikable character traits weren't adapted for Harvey in the sitcom, because he would have been annoying.